The first time I heard the knocking, I thought it was the wind rattling the old glass panes. The second time, I realized it was coming from behind the locked door at the very top of the lighthouse. And the third time, it knocked back in rhythm with my heartbeat. I never believed in ghost stories. Not really. But when I signed up as a volunteer to help restore the old Greywick Point lighthouse, I didn't know I was walking straight into one. Greywick sat on a jagged cliffside overlooking the Atlantic. It hadn't been operational since the 1960s, when the Coast Guard decommissioned it. For decades, it was left to rot its paint peeling, its windows cracked, its spiral staircase rusting with every storm. The first day I arrived, the air smelled of brine and rust. The gulls circled overhead, their cries sharp and mocking. Inside, the air was damp and stale, carrying the faint odor of mildew and something else. Something metallic, like old blood. That's when I saw it. A heavy iron door, just below the lantern room. Unlike the others, this one was sealed with a thick, rusted padlock. When I asked about it, the project leader brushed me off, said it was unsafe flooring. But the way his eyes shifted told me there was more to it. That night, when I stayed behind to finish sweeping, I heard it. A faint, hollow knock from behind that locked door. The second night, the knocking was louder, more deliberate. I froze halfway up the staircase, my flashlight beam trembling against the wall. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracked in the hollow stairwell. The knocking stopped, and then I heard it. A whisper, not words exactly, but the faint hiss of breath, like someone exhaling just on the other side of the door. I swear I saw movement in the crack beneath the door, a shadow shifting. I bolted down the stairs, out into the night air. But the next day, when I mentioned it to the others, they admitted they'd heard things too. Ely said he'd heard tapping, like fingernails on wood. Martha said she'd heard voices. And when I asked Caro, the project leader, he snapped. Told us to leave it alone, but his hands were shaking. That night, I brought a crowbar. The knocking was frantic now, desperate, like fists pounding from the inside. I jammed the crowbar into the padlock, my hands slick with sweat. The metal groaned as I pried. The knocking grew louder, faster, almost panicked. Finally, with a sharp crack, the lock snapped. The door creaked open an inch, and the knocking stopped. Inside was a chair, bolted to the floor, leather straps dangling from its arms and legs, and scratches, deep gouges in the wood, as if someone had clawed at the floor in desperation. The door slammed shut behind me. My flashlight flickered, and in that stuttering light, I saw the straps tightening, curling inward, as if invisible wrists and ankles were pulling against them. Then came the voices. "Let us out. Don't open it. Help me. Run." And then something touched me. A hand. Cold. Clammy. Gripping my wrist. I slammed my shoulder against the door until it burst open. I stumbled out, gasping. The padlock was back in place, as if it had never been broken. The next day, Martha said she heard the knocking in her house, in the walls. In the walls. Eli said he saw a man in a raincoat, dripping seawater, staring at him from the lantern room. Caro finally spoke. His voice was low. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. The last keeper locked it himself, before he disappeared. They never found his body. Just the scratches. That night, the lighthouse shook with the sound of fists pounding, voices screaming, and at the top of the stairs, I saw him, the man in the raincoat. He raised his hand and knocked. 3 slow, deliberate raps. The padlock snapped open. The door creaked wide, and something inside began to crawl out. I still hear the knockings sometimes. In my apartment, in the walls, in my dreams. And when I close my eyes, I see that door. Waiting. If you ever visit Greywick Point, don't go near the lighthouse. Don't climb the stairs. And whatever you do, don't listen if something knocks back. They say the ocean never forgets its dead, but on certain nights, it makes sure you don't either. I took the lighthouse job in late September, when the nights grew longer and the ocean grew louder. The lighthouse itself stood on a jagged stretch of rock, several miles from the nearest village. It wasn't a glamorous position, more like babysitting an old, creaking tower, but I welcomed the solitude. After a messy breakup and debts I didn't want to face, isolation seemed almost like a blessing. Most nights were the same. I'd keep the lantern fueled, listen to the waves, hammer the rocks, and try to ignore the way the walls groaned as if the tower itself were alive. But the first night of the storm was different. The wind screamed against the glass. Rain pelted the tower so hard it sounded like pebbles thrown at the windows. Around midnight, as I sat in the keeper's quarters drinking cheap coffee, I heard it, faint. At first, just a noise beneath the storm. I thought maybe it was the wind forcing itself through cracks in the stone. But then, in the lull between thunderclaps, I caught it clearly. It was a voice, not just one, several, rising from the black water below, distorted but unmistakably human. They weren't shouting for help like shipwrecked sailors. Their words chilled me deeper than the wind ever could. Turn the light off. I froze, cup halfway to my mouth, staring at the ceiling as if the voice had seeped in through the beams. My first thought was exhaustion, maybe even auditory hallucinations. But the voices came again, louder this time, carried up on the wind and the spray of the ocean. Turn it off. I climbed the spiral stairs to the lantern room, heart hammering. The beam still swung in wide arcs across the sea, slicing through the fog like a sword. Nothing unusual. No wrecks. No ships. Just the endless storm. When morning came, I told myself it was the ocean playing tricks. The mind conjures strange things when it's deprived of sleep. I shrugged it off. But the second night, it returned. The voices were sharper now, layered like a crowd pressing close around me. Men, women, even children. The tone wasn't panicked, it was commanding, insistent. Turn it off. Turn it off. I tried plugging my ears with cloth, drowning the noise with the old radio, but no matter what I did, the voices threaded through the walls, through the waves, into my bones. By the third night, I couldn't ignore it. The storm had eased, but the cries continued, rising from the black swells as if the sea itself wanted me to obey. I leaned out over the balcony, lantern swing in my hand, and shouted into the dark. "What do you want from me?" The answer came all at once. A chorus carried on the wind so loud it made me stumble back. Turn the light off. My knees weakened. I nearly dropped the lantern. That was when I realized they weren't asking me. They were warning me. I tried to shake it. Rationalize. Maybe some prank. Some sound bouncing strangely off the cliffs. But the nearest soul was 5 miles away. And the voices. They knew me. One night, when I hadn't left my post for hours, I heard my name whispered from the surf. Not shouted, not screamed, whispered, like someone standing just behind me. I refused to look out the window. Sleep abandoned me. I walked the tower halls like a ghost, skin clammy, eyes stinging from sleepless nights. The voices were constant now, even in the calm, and with them came something worse. Shadows, not inside, not visible. Just out there, beneath the waves, I'd catch glimpses when the beam swung low dark shapes writhing, as though the sea itself were boiling with butt. Every instinct screamed to leave. But the boat wasn't due for another week. I was trapped. On the 6th night, I snapped. I climbed to the lantern room, hands trembling. The machinery hummed, the beam slicing across the water, and below hundreds of voices. Overlapping, desperate. My chest tightened with panic. I reached for the lever to shut the light down. For a moment, silence washed over me. But in the same breath, from the black water below, a single voice cut through the quiet. Too late. The air dropped cold, colder than any storm. The glass fogged, though the fire inside burned strong. And then I saw it. Not a ship, not wreckage, something pale, vast, breaking the surface of the water just for a heartbeat, illuminated by the beam. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything I recognized. It looked like dozens of faces, all fused together, staring back at me with mouths stretched wide. And then the wave took it, swallowing it whole. The tower shuddered. I stumbled back from the glass, nearly tumbling down the spiral stairs. The voices didn't fade this time. Tay screamed. Hundreds of them, rising in a terrible chorus. "Turn it off!" I ran. I don't remember how long, maybe minutes, maybe hours. When I finally dared to climb back up, the beam had already extinguished itself. The machinery lay silent. The glass cracked as if something had pressed against it from the outside. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't spoken to anyone about it, not even the relief keeper who came to rotate shifts. The lighthouse is still standing, but the villagers swear the beam flickers on by itself, even when no one's inside. And at night, when the fog rolls in, fishermen say they can hear it, 2 voices rising from the black waves, begging anyone who listens to do the same thing I couldn't. Turn the light off.